Good evening. On school committee to order. Thursday, April 11th, 2024 at 6:38 PM. First item of business is the statement regarding recording.
Good evening. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted to YouTube and other social media platforms. By participating in this meeting, you understand that the recording could contain your video stream or your audio stream, including images of yourself or anyone in the room with you. If you choose to enable your video or audio device during the meeting, as well as anything or anyone else that may be in the background could be recorded. The recording could include any opinions you contribute and anything you say about yourself. On occasion, chat within the meeting could also be captured in the meeting recording. Therefore, anyone attending the recorded meeting may have aspects of their personal data recorded if they actively participate or not.
Thank you. Roll call for attendance, please.
Dr. Allen? Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Deschamps? Mr. Willannon?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly? Ms. Garvey? Ms. Cartier? Mrs. Chamberlain?
Here.
Ms. Muck?
Here.
Ms. Chafee?
Here.
Mr. Wigler? Mrs. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Nutter?
Here.
Mr. Jean-Francois? Mr. Whitelaw? Ms. Coviello?
Here.
And Mr. Chairman.
Here. Okay, so we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Okay, we'll do business. Before we go to this advisory, just real quick, we have approval of minutes for March 14th, not only in your, but also was given earlier. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of March 14th, 2024? So moved. Moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Any potential corrections? Any omissions? Any potential deletions? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, please. For acceptance.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Willannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Muck?
Yes.
Ms. Chafee?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Thank you. Next item, Student Advisory Council, a term of the superintendent.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome Principal Erin Cook from Hubbardston Center School with some of her students. I believe they're going to share with us about a recent math project.
All right, so thank you all. I brought 4 really great 4th graders today. So why don't you guys go ahead up and I'm going to introduce them. When we were planning for this, they said it was okay if I shared a fun fact about each of them and let you know also they chose their matching outfits for tonight. So they are fully prepared. So Abby, fun fact about Abby is she lives right next door to her grandparents. Kayla, fun fact is that she loves soccer. Casey's fun fact is she's actually a type 1 diabetic. And Ralph's fun fact, I don't consider very fun, but he loves that he has a ball python as a pet at home.
I don't think that's fun.
So decided to share out about a math festival that was held at all the elementary schools in the district. And it was created and developed by Wendy Cleaves, who's the district math coach, and Trish Erickson, who's a coach at Ruggles Lane. And it focused on geometry because in the district, data has shown that students have a bit more of a challenge when it comes to geometry across the board. So these 2 ladies developed this math festival to give students some additional support and teachers with lots of hands-on activities. So these 4 are going to explain the 4 stations that students rotated through as part of the math festival.
You can give me 1 second, I'll pull your presentation up.
You're going to see that.
I got thrown off because we didn't have a quorum, sorry.
We do now.
I do now.
And Ms. Bennett, you could, once you get there, if you just go to the fourth slide, that's where Abby's gonna start, so.
Fourth slide?
Yep.
Hey.
All right, go ahead, Abby.
There are four geometry stations that classes rotated through. The stations are Station 1, Tile Style, Station 2, Build What I've Created, Station 3, Pentanomino Puzzles, Station 4, School Quilt Grip, Station 1, Tile Style. Students would choose one of the 14 options to recreate. This is called tiling. Some shapes were much trickier to build. Then you would have to fill a square with only the shapes used to make the shape that you choose. These are some amazing HCS students that work.
This is the tile with style, and then if you go to the next one.
Yeah.
You all move that way, I bet that would help. These are the students at work at the tile with style stations. And then, Abby, you're all set, right? One more? Thank you. All right, Kayla, you're up. Oh, no, sorry.
Station 2 was called Build What I've Created. Students worked with a partner. One partner had to explain to the other which shape and what sizes of each to use to build a puzzle. The students were separated by a divided, which meant the partner speaking had to use clear descriptive math vocabulary to explain. This was a challenging station.
Yeah.
This slide shows HCS students at work.
And one more.
Station 3 was pentomino puzzles. The pentomino are one combined shape made up of squares. These all came in different arrangements. For example, shaped like the letter L or X. We had a template of a puzzle and multiple pentominos. We had to put all the pentominos together on the template to make the shape. There's some HCS students working on the pentomino.
Station 4 was a school quilt glyph. A glyph is a visual representation of data. Students created themselves on hexagon-shaped paper. The color depended on your grade level. Your eyes would be your favorite special. Your nose is your age. Your mouth is how you get to school. And your cheeks is if you like numbers or shapes more. This shows how unique and special every HCS student is. This is an example of one. The next slide shows HCS students at work. And the final slide is our school's final quilt.
One more.
Ah,
Yeah.
it's very cool.
So Kayla, can you turn and explain that? Just like you did, but turn and show them the color, the eyes.
The eyes are one of the specials, and like the nose is, I think this one is if you ride a bus to school. This one is, I think these ones if you like numbers more.
Ready for some questions?
Why don't you guys scoot right up close?
First, I want to say thank you here. That's- Any questions, comments, school committee members?
Just wondering if you all are sad because your teacher did not wear the same outfit that you guys. Okay.
Anybody? Just a couple questions. Not sure if it was Kayla. Who spoke about the second station? Okay, you, okay.
Ralph.
Ralph. You mentioned that it was challenging. And you had to have a partner, correct? What was the most challenging part that you remember?
Abby, do you want to help them? We talked about this earlier.
You would have to, you had like a board, so you couldn't see each other and you had to like describe the shape.
Oh,
You would also have to describe where you put it on the, like template, so it was tricky, cause like if like you don't know for sure, like they have to be good at describing and you have to like be good at listening to what they're saying.
absolutely. It was described because you didn't see it. It was a barrier. It's a tough. That'd be tough.
So did all the students, did you have control as to where this was going, or? I mean, how was the guidance for this, or how much control? Could they go where they wanted to go with the design?
So I didn't create it, but was the template there and you had to follow the template?
No,
No, it was just like blank.
It's blank.
Great, good.
And then at the end, I mean, you did some graph work. And then the mosaic, the big design that you made, was that? How many sides? 5, 6 sides? I'm just curious, were they all this, you had it,
Yeah, they're all the same.
they're all the same? So how many sides?
6.
6. Beautiful. And from there, are you adding another layer? Are you making it multi-dimensional or is it just flat?
It was just flat.
Flat. Well, here's another idea. You could take it.
Next year.
Take it and make it a 3-dimensional or whatever you could with it. What do you think of that? Okay. Is there anyone else? High school students, student representatives?
I guess, yeah, I would ask, did you guys all have a favorite station? Which ones were your favorites?
I like the pentagonal puzzles.
I liked the what I created.
Me too.
Awesome, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
It's a good basketball.
Yes, thank you parents for coming and your help and support. You're more than welcome to stay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So, teacher.
No, that's Principal Cook.
So going forward, I mean, I think geometrical stuff is great at an early age. I mean, is language being used like quadrangle, pentagram, octagon? I mean, familiarizing themselves with all that discourse regarding geometrical shapes.
Yes, and it changes depending on the grade level. But one thing that was great about the math festival is the 2 adults who created it really tried to work in lots of math vocabulary so that when the kids were talking, using that language. So that they were working on taking what they learned in the class and really using their hands to build and then to discuss with one another using that language, which was really building on what they've learned in the class and from year to year. So the language and the discourse was a huge part of the goals of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll go to student advisory, Nick and Isabel. Anything to report, share with us?
I have a lot
For our
to
attention.
on today. This one's gonna be really long, so I apologize in advance for this. So I'm gonna start with the state council and then I'll move on to our regional council. So at the state council, they have 4 different work groups. We are now at the stage for both the state council and the regional councils where we're all moving forward with our final reports that we are going to submit to the Department of Education which all the members of the Board of Education will all read. And inside those, we will give our recommendations as to whatever it is that we worked on throughout the year. So career education and preparedness, they looked at financial literacy and they will be going forward with a report advocating for it. They looked at kind of what grants that the department could use to help schools. They also looked at the state bill that's in the State House right now. And they looked at all that. And then there's a lot of discussion about it, so they'll be moving forward with their report. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, they focused on the MCAS graduation requirements because there's a very strong majority of the kids in the council where most of us believe that MCAS shouldn't be a graduation requirement. The big debate whenever we meet about it. So the one thing that they focused on was trying to find a way to give funding to communities that are underfunded. And then they also looked at removing the requirement altogether because they felt because students don't like MCAS. That's in all simplicity, that's kind of what it is, but it's also among other things. But the problem is that they're looking for a solution of the problem because the problem is that they identified was that there was a disproportionate rate of passing with the underfunded communities and with the non-English speaking learners. Because the one thing that the kids noticed is the non-English speaking learners in their schools had a very hard time passing the MCAS in their schools. And of course, that affected their funding, how much money the school would get. Sustainability. Correct me if I'm wrong. So sustainability, they looked at the positions that schools were in as far as how sustainable they are in their practices. They found that schools were at very different places across the state. You had some schools doing a great job and then you had some schools who were doing an okay job. And they kind of thought of it as, how can we find one solution for this? But then when they sent out surveys, figuring out everything, they found that there isn't one solution for all these schools. So they're trying to figure out kind of multiple solutions, a way for them to kind of make it so that it's personalized towards each district. So the one thing that they did come up with was basically kind of connecting the schools and making it possible for schools to see what other schools are doing for their sustainable practices. That way they can see, okay, this school's doing it, so I can go about it this way for our own school district. And then finally, health and wellness, they focused on first aid, Narcan, and CPR training. Looked at a lot of resources in regards to all those topics. And they also looked at they're advocating for curriculum as well as training for these three things. And then they have been reaching out to organizations like the Red Cross and as well as members within the department to try to figure out where it is that they can recommend and then figure out where it is that they can. This is council. So for our regional council, first up, class variation, they focused on which aspect of classes best creates student success and their specific needs. So they mainly have focused on the idea of study periods and study halls. Luckily here we have flex blocks. Surprisingly, one of the things they found is that there's a lot of districts that do not have a study hall apparently within their own school. So kids just go straight through school with their classes with very little time to meet with teachers if they need to meet with teachers or homework. So they're going to advocate for kind of like flexible periods, electives, and basically like pacing of classes. Then student success. These two work groups kind of had similar goals, but they went about it in kind of two different ways. Student success, they listened to students' needs and looked at how to improve the school across Central Mass. So one of the things that they found was we sent out surveys to all of our schools within the Central Mass region. And one of the things is that we asked them kind of like what classes they want to see within their schools. And the things that came up were the financial literacy classes and the home ec classes. Because one of the things that students made note of was they felt overwhelmed by how ill prepared they felt after high school because they didn't have these classes. So that was kind of one of the things. And then one of the interesting things was is the members in the group, because everybody comes from different backgrounds, different school districts, everybody had different opinions about what they thought was necessary for so-and-so school district versus somebody else's. So they're gonna come up with one recommendation, which hopefully should help be applicable to all school districts. But mainly it's gonna be advocating for resources so that schools have something for financial literacy and home ec classes. Anything to add?
As far as the councils go, just looking at how it reflects on Quabbin, we've been able to be used as a pretty decent example in terms of for our council for class variation, looking at things like Flex Block, we've been a shining example of that and how students find that really, really helpful in terms of whether or not it's just going to a club meeting or if it's getting extra help from a teacher. There was for student success, I know that I think the senior class had a credit for life presentation today or yesterday. That I'm not sure how that went, but I'm sure that it's definitely been very helpful, and having programs like that is definitely useful. And I think something students can benefit from. Students have also been working on a lot of sustainability efforts because Earth Day is next week, there's been a lot of efforts throughout our district. One in Barry that the student council's been working on, the environmental club did a presentation. I just know that personally. I'm not sure about how some of these other ones are applicable on the state council level besides what we've been talking about with AED devices for health and wellness. But again, Quabbin has been a pretty shining example of that in terms of what we've been talking about for our work groups. I know that aside from that, there's been a lot happening in the district. MCAS finishing up for sophomores, 8th grade still in DC, coming back. But I think break is next week and kids are very excited for that. Lots of stuff happening, seniors getting ready for prom and for all of their end of year events. AP testing and IB testing is coming up pretty soon. So that's going to take up a ton of time. But other than that, I think anything big sports wise, spring sports have started, which is very great.
So the only thing is so as of right now, I think it was Sunday night, we had German exchange students came to Quabbin this week. There were about 30 plus kids, I would say. They're from Berlin, but the school that they're from is called Alba. And it's kind of like a basketball kind of, the people who come, they're usually all like basketball players. They also play other sports too, but mainly it's for basketball. So all those kids have been here this week. They've been staying with host families for people who wanted to host. My family is hosting one. And then the other thing is they've been shadowing kids in school because we've had host families who don't have kids in Quabbin. So the way that we could make it, because they all come to school with us before they leave for whatever it is that they do during the day for their itinerary. So they have kids who shadow. So I have a kid who's shadowing me in all of my classes. And it's interesting because I've been asking them about because my German exchange student, Bruno, he asked me, how many breaks do you guys get? I go, what do you mean by breaks? And then he's like, well, we have 2 breaks. He said, we have 1 break for food. He said, and then we have another break for where we can go outside and kind of just relax for a moment before we continue school. I said, oh yeah, the only break we get is 30 minutes of lunch. And then he goes, oh, really? But the funny thing was, and then I asked him about their school day, and they go from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. for their school day. And I was just surprised by it, but.
Do they do a longer year?
I think they do. They do. But it was just interesting talking to them and seeing their perspective. And then I think I also played basketball with them. It's like 3 days. They're pretty good. But, and then the credit for life fair was also pretty good because we were able to, so we had to role play as like a 25-year-old. And then we were given a credit score. And it was a random credit score. And then we had like a lanyard and then we had to attach it to our lanyard. And then we were given a clipboard with a paper. And then the paper outlined like what jobs we could pick. And then we have to go over to a specific station and say, I want to be, so I picked like stockbroker. So I said, I want to be a stockbroker. And then they gave me the paper with my monthly salary. And then I had a blank big section. And then I had to go to each station. So there was like utilities, transportation, furniture, everything under the sun. And I had to go to each one and basically plan out my entire budget as to what it is that I can spend. Jess was there, so she that's all. But
Yeah, you didn't mention medical insurance.
Was that your
messages.
station?
I was informed of that. I walked up and I was told it was $102 for health insurance.
103 now. It's expensive.
I go, yeah, I was like, it's like, that's expensive. Then Jess goes, oh no, that's cheap.
I told them, you know, what I pay or when you're,
Yeah.
have a family.
But no, it was good. And then after we kind of like, we submitted them to the workers that were there. And then we kind of saw if we were in the negatives or if we were in the positives. So it was good. Thankfully, I was,
in the budget?
oh, I was in the positives. I had about $500 left over, so
Wow.
I was able to,
His salary wasn't great though per month. I was surprised in being a
How much was
stockbroker.
his
We
salary
spoke
per
about it.
month?
made like $2,900 a month.
How much were the artists and the musicians? They always struggle at credit for life.
They're the ones who are always there when the air horn goes off, trying to get the part-time job.
That's a trick question.
But yeah, that is it.
Fun.
Good. Any follow-up questions?
No, I just actually, to our superintendent, we still don't have a financial literacy course, do we?
We don't. We are working on, Carrie can talk about it, implementing more of a financial literacy.
We did just offer one to our students for next year, so we have, it's a 2.5-year.
Yep.
Courses, one is in business, business finance, and one is financial literacy.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, tons of kids signed up for it too, so it's
Good.
popular. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm glad the report out on the state level, on the regional, that Quabbin is a very proactive on some perspectives, both on the medical, the social, the health, the safety part, as well as the flex part. Because that was a big deal a few years ago with not only the administration, but working with the teachers and staff. And you're mentioning that there are a lot of school districts that don't have any, and you got the students asking for. So you're hearing from the customers, from our parents and our students about what they want and access. You want to not just access to the teachers and for extra time, but also other information as well. So thank you for your representation of both the regional and on the state, but at the same time, we're doing right by students. And it's nice that you said we can be a shining star and people recognize that as well. Good. Administrative report, superintendent of schools.
So the top section of my report are just the work that I've been doing on my goals. And also there's a few fun pictures in there. So you know we had a solar eclipse on Monday. And so we knew our elementary students were going to be riding the buses during the time that the eclipse happened. So we purchased solar eclipse glasses for all of our students. And I think most of our schools actually got the kids outside a little bit early so they could kind of show them how to wear them and to look up. We also had about, 300 or 400 extra glasses that we sent over to the middle high school. All of our student athletes had glasses for their events in that afternoon. It was as much a learning opportunity as it was a safety sort of thing that we were thinking about. But you'll see in the pictures, so the picture on the left is from Principal Cook's school over in Hubbardston. Those are her students. I think they're all lined up for the bus. And in the middle, those are our eighth graders. So the eighth graders stopped off on their way to DC. They found a place where the kids could watch the solar eclipse. And so I've been getting a lot of photos this week. And then the photos to the right, as Isabel said, they're down in DC this week. So they're at the Washington Monument. That's all of the students. 140 eighth graders went on the trip.
Wow.
About 35 did not go, but they're in school doing different activities. It's also MCAS week. I feel like Isabel could do my report here. This is great. And so some things that we're working on is we like to post especially of any of our hard to fill positions that are going to be open for next year. So we started to post those up on School Spring. Scheduling is underway for grades 9 through 12. They filled out, as Carrie said, they already kind of know who's requested what. We are working on our summer programming between our ESY program, our credit recovery programs, scheduling that out. Eighth graders are down in DC and JROTC is heading out to Europe. And I thought it would be fun to share a few celebrations. So if you didn't get to see it on the news, we had one positive event on the news where one of our high school lunch monitors, Christine Bellino, did the Heimlich maneuver on a student. So that was awesome. We so appreciate her in stepping in and helping a student. Also really, really exciting is one of our 11th graders has been appointed to Governor Maura Healey's Student Advisory Council. So only 60 students from across the state were selected. They had to write an essay. And this is something that I had put out at the start of the year to the middle high school team, and they forwarded it out to the kids. So we're really excited about that. It's a big deal. Teacher Staff Appreciation Week is going to be held May 6th through 10th. We'll have a few surprises there. I'm just keeping you up to date. I hope this is the last time I have to update you on this, but our end of the year date is now June 18th. That will be our last day of school. That's always an early release day. And we had a early release day scheduled in January that we had a snow day on. So we are going to schedule that early release day on Monday. So students will have a full week up through Friday, the 14th. And then they'll have a half day on Monday and teachers will have PD in the afternoon. And on Tuesday will be the last day of school with early release. We're excited to be able to offer the teachers some opportunity for pre-work for the upcoming year. They'll have their student lists. They'll be able to look at student educational plans, things like that. So we're excited to be able to do something a little bit different with that. Our eighth grade.
Well, with the snow.
Well, let's hope it's the last one, like I said. Our eighth grade graduation is scheduled for Friday, the 14th, and our fifth grade step up days are all going to be held on June 17th, that Monday. So you can pop that in your calendars. Carrie.
We had the Lynn Lyons presentation last night. Nice to see Rocky there.
Yep.
She came to talk a little bit about anxiety and depression in children and teens and what parents and schools can be doing about that. She talked a little bit about, the influence of cell phones and social media and how that kind of plays a role. I thought she was pretty engaging. We had about 50 attendees, which was pretty decent for a middle of the week parent event. So we were happy with that turnout, and the middle high school and elementary teachers had presentations geared to them earlier in the day during the early release. So we had some good feedback around that. The curriculum review is underway, and we got an initial approval of a grant to cover some professional development in order to pilot investigating history in grades 5 to 7. So we're excited about that. We are looking ahead to our professional development plan for next year. One of the things we're working on is trying to provide a little more structure for our writing program. It's not a new curriculum, but it's a different approach that we could use K through 12. It's called Self-Regulated Strategy Development. It's research-based. And the idea is that it helps students to scaffold, but they do it themselves. So they learn how to pick their own strategy based on the type of writing they're being asked to do. And the idea is that while supporting them and giving them that scaffold, it's also helping them to build toward independence themselves. So it's always a fine line for us when we help students, we can sometimes, make them dependent on that help. And we really want them to be able to do it by themselves at the end. So we're looking forward to that. And we have started planning our summer recovery program for the summer. So you may see postings soon for those positions as well. We're starting to hammer out the details as we get a better idea now. At this point, after 3 quarters, kind of how many students we might be including in that program.
Great. Kevin?
April break, we have several projects scheduled throughout the district. At Ruggles Lane, we're gonna be replacing all the emergency lights. It's basically 71 units. We're scheduled to do that on Monday and Tuesday of next week. In Hubbardston is for lack of terms, as a half of a basement, a dirt floor basement that's in that building. There's several old fixtures, furniture, etc., that's been left in there over the years, and amount of moisture, etc., that's down there because of the dirt floor has created some kind of a white mold situation, which is below the library area. So part of that smell from the mustiness, etc., gets up underneath the stage, which gets into the library, which isn't used that much. So we're going to be clearing everything out of that basement and disposing of it. Cleaning the carpet in the library and then removing everything underneath the crawl space under the stage and doing the same. In the middle school at the at Quabbin, we're going to be replacing the basketball winches and installing new winches with remote controls, so they're not controlled on the old drill with a turn screw, which is obviously very dangerous and below the we'll be running the electric for each of those winches, installing the winches. If we have time at the end of the week, we're going to be replacing the lighting that's on the stage in the auditorium. The existing lighting is T12 bulb, which is old antiquated. It's not energy efficient at all, and they're actually limiting what they're manufacturing because they're doing away with them. So we're going to be replacing those with LED fixtures. The shrubs that go across the front of the middle high school, we're going to be removing next week, and basically prepping everything and redesigning the beds for new plantings. And then we have maintenance scheduled for the sewer road that's across the street. From all the rain that we've had and everything else, we've had a lot of washout and everything else. We have to install rip wraps and new channels and material down there.
And Andrew?
As you've heard a couple times now, MCAS testing, the first batch is done. So our staffing pattern will go back to normal. Because we are short staffed, we had to leave the high school uncovered during the mornings while we were assisting the elementary schools. So we'll have 2 weeks of a normal staffing pattern, and then we will go back to that style of coverage at the end of April, early May for the math testing. Through the E-rate bidding, we did end up getting a new internet provider for the first time in the 11 years that I've been here. They actually did some walkthroughs this week to run new fiber optic lines to 3 of our schools. They predict that the project will take 9 to 10 weeks for the full install and config, which will bring us right up to the July 1st turn-on date. Next week, we are having the copier fleet delivered. It is a one-to-one. What's that? No. The copier fleet comes in next week. It's a one-to-one replacement of models, so I don't predict there'll be any problems, but we'll have a couple days to sort out any issues before staff come back. And then since the last school committee meeting, we've closed out 253 tickets for a total of 2,390 since the start of the school year.
Thank you.
Cheryl?
An update on some of the procurements I told you about last month and where we ended up. Our IFB for excavation services, this is for the donated building that we got from Northview Mount Hermon. The excavation was awarded to our digger Donald for $18,995. In concert with that, we issued an IFB for the concrete foundation and floor of that building. That was awarded to J. Campbell Builders from Barry as well for $32,000 even. Our RFP for engineering services for feasibility study on the press box and bleacher system, no bids were received, and there will be a further report on that at the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittees. Our electricity supplier, which our current contract is up in November of 2024, was awarded through the French River Consortium we belong to First Point Power for 11.7 cents per kilowatt hour, 27.8% increase. However, the broker showed us the graphs that they've been tracking for years, and we're at a dip right now, going to go up at any time, so we thought it was the best time to go out. Luckily, we did not have to go out to bid over the last 2 years for electric power because it was considerably higher than not only our current rate, but that 11-cent rate that we're getting. So we got it right at the right time. French River was also looking at doing the cooperative bid for oil for FY 26. And Mr. Clark and I got together. We did not participate in the French River bid last year or for this year. We did better going out to bid our own for this year than the French River Consortium at whatever million gallons that they order. So we feel confident of going back to hopefully getting a local supplier. So we are not going to participate in that French River bid for 26. The House budget was released this week. However, the cherry sheets have not been posted by the Department of Revenue yet. It is expected that we will receive $74 more per foundation FTE for Chapter 70 for minimum aid. So it was $30 in the governor's budget. It's now $104. That means an additional $142,000 for Quabbin. Don't spend it all in one place though, okay? It's not anywhere near, that doesn't cover the transportation bid. So we're gonna have some work to do. Available for you in the drive and also in your folders is the third quarter reports for the grants and the revolving accounts. The general fund is not available for tonight. There were no new grant awards. However, there were a couple of grants that were increased slightly, and those are in highlight on that report there. And since our last meeting, bi-weekly payrolls 20 and 21 were approved for release. Weekly payrolls 38, 39, 40, and 41, and accounts payable 69A, 70B, 71H, 72A, 73B, and 74FO. I do want to do a shout out to Mr. Deschamps, who signed these from Washington DC, and he was right on time. So thank you to him. That is all I have for now.
Cheryl, where's the big tent thing going?
Mr. Clark, where's the big tent thing going?
Building is going out behind Alumni Field. There's currently a maintenance area that's now, we've cleared off the side of the end of the track there, which is parallel with Grogan Road. We actually had 12 trees removed the other day, some dying ash trees, et cetera, that were on that border, so we just want to get rid of it before it came in. But we've already cleared out that area right there, so the building will lay out at about 61 feet by about 31 feet. The way that we're doing the foundation will raise it high enough that we have a good 8-foot clearance, so we can put, it in there, et cetera. Good.
Cheryl, do we go out for an electrical bid every year? 3 years. Every 3.
Anything else?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
So for a split second, when Kevin was making his presentation, and he said, we went down into this basement, and I'm like, oh, come on, don't get ahead of me. I'm thinking he's going to say, we found this painting appraised at $1 million. And I was really getting excited. And then I realized, even if he did, Cheryl's going to say, well, we can't use it because, we can't go into our E&D fund. So I'm glad you didn't find the painting.
We work well as a team, Mr. Mullane.
Okay.
We've got each other's back.
That's all.
That's good.
There were some antiquities down there, I think. John?
So just to start off with some updates, we did actually do interviews for an SLP for the vacant position that we've had vacant since December, and ended up offering the job to an SLP that will be starting at the beginning of next year. Currently, we do have Presence Learning that is providing a portion of what we need for coverage. And we do also still have a person who's out on maternity leave that is scheduled to come back into her position May 6th. We do have French River Collaborative actually giving us a part-time person right now for that vacancy. And we do have somebody from the CAPS Collaborative that will be helping us out, starting in May around the 6th as well. Also, we did hire the position for the SOAR teacher at the middle high school area, and that person did start a couple weeks ago. And she has actually been doing a great job, and want to just welcome her here to the district. Also, we have preparations going on for the extended school year. We're actually just starting to get ready to send out letters to parents just to get them to confirm what we're actually providing for services this year relevant to the schedule for the times of classes. We have looked at that schedule a little bit to see if we could shuffle it around a little bit, hoping to improve transportation. But we need to have those numbers back from the parents first before we can see if there will be an actual effect to that. So we're not diminishing any of the classes that we had offered the previous year, just adjusting the schedule a little bit. And we are looking to hire 2 long-term subs for one-to-one positions. These would be paraprofessional positions and essentially would take us until the end of the year. And also the CPAC, we have a meeting coming up actually on the 16th. CPAC will be doing a presentation with the lending library in Worcester that focuses mostly on deaf and hard of hearing services or supports for students. And then they are working on, I believe it's May 8th, relevant to the recognition celebration for staff at the 4 QRSD staff members, and that would be here in this room. And one other thing I'll mention that I didn't put on my list is that I did some PD with the paraprofessionals yesterday and actually have some ideas I'd like to do with them relevant to professional development going forward.
Quick question on the CPAC. How has the CPAC been this year, both from representation and involvement?
Well, I have to say that in most of the districts in this region that I've worked in, the numbers have been fairly small, but I do want to say that some of the numbers for the meetings that we have been larger than most of the other CPAC meetings regionally that I've seen. So at times, depending on the topic, we've had probably well over a dozen people. Most of the time, it's maybe half a dozen or so, which I have to unfortunately say is typical for a lot of districts in this region. But Stephanie has been great to work with. She's been able to either sit in or come in on some of our meetings with our subcommittee, and also has been in touch with me quite frequently. And it's just been really a pleasure to work with.
Thanks.
Greg.
You online?
No, he should be online. He was online.
Mr. Devine?
Yeah, he's on.
Sorry.
now.
Sorry.
Hi.
Hey,
Okay.
how you doing?
Hello.
So I just want to give you a couple updates on some things we've already talked about. We had mentioned that the college fair is coming in May, and as of now, we have over 75 colleges and institutions that'll be visiting Quabbin on May 6th in the evening. That number will probably grow by a little bit, and I, want to thank facilities for really being very helpful in terms of helping us prep for that and be aware of the things that we need to do to facilitate having probably a few hundred people in our building in the evening. Credit for Life, Mr. Whitelock gave a great description of what happened in that, but I want to take a minute to just thank the people from central office that were there and volunteered for the day. Jess Bennett, Stacy Scary, and Lori Reed, and special thank you to Jody Garolitis and Country Bank for hosting us. As like I said, Mr. Whitelock gave a great description, and I didn't know Jess was going to put my picture with her in the report. Thanks, Jess.
You're welcome, Greg.
The next thing that I need to talk about is, can you scroll up, Jess? Okay, the Innovation Career Pathways, we had our second partner meeting of the year. We had it on the snow day that we had last week virtually, and we actually had more attendance at that for our partners than any other meeting that I've attended in the past number of years. At this point, we're also exploring a program with a company called Vision Internships to develop project-based internships that can be done at school and support the needs of our business and industry partners. You can find more information regarding that company at the website that's there, visioninternships.com. And I want to express a special thank you to Therese Salvador on pursuing that opportunity for our students. So we just kind of move along preparing for our opportunities for next year. Work-based learning, again, Mass Hire has provided us with some funding. Or they pay the students directly in STEM, a STEM-based experience for the spring. We have 2 students at present that are one is working in the New Braintree Fire Department and the other one is working at Haywood Hospital that are eligible for this. And those students will continue to do that through the end of the fiscal year. The post-grad program wants to express their sincerest gratitude to Kevin Clark and his team, especially Dan Johnson and Ryan Mullins. We had 2 of our kids that were able to come up to the outbuilding behind Alumni Field and work on building those tables with Dan and Ryan. And it was wonderful for them to have that experience. And now the post-grad kids, when the weather is nice, have a place that they can sit outside and eat lunch. And they are very grateful. That's all I've got. Thank you.
And the last section of the report is from Mr. Myville, who I don't think is here. He's probably just wrapping up from his afternoon of athletics, but we have over 300 student athletes for our spring teams. And they all got started between last week and this week. The weather and the snow impacted their ability to have games at the start of the week, so they had to delay a little bit. And he is just sort of sharing some of the statistics of how many athletes that we've had. So he's saying that participation's at an all-time high and that, you know, adding varsity cheer, unified basketball and unified track and field has helped that. So in the graduating class, there's 121 total students who take part in athletics. 55 of them played at least one sport as a senior. And of those, 27 are multi-sport athletes. Overall, he has 823 students who participated in athletics. And then he shows you the breakdown by town. So you can see that school choice and students from our own communities. Did you have a question?
I do. Do you know how the baseball trip went?
Oh, they had to cancel.
Oh.
So yes, thanks for bringing that up. So last time we were here, they were supposed to go to the Cape and they were having that big windstorm. So they actually had to cancel. They weren't able to play. But they really wanted to have some team bonding experience because that's something they took away from that trip. So they borrowed 1 or 2 of the vans on that Sunday and they took the students bowling and did some different activities like that. So they made the best of it.
Too bad it didn't work.
Yeah.
Mr. Devine just put in the chat that he's sorry he couldn't be here in person this evening. And he's needs to excuse himself from the meeting because he has to go pack for the ROTC trip tomorrow.
Not a problem. Okay, so thank you, Superintendent, for the report. We did, warrants are done, correct? You gave us an update, Cheryl?
Yes.
On the warrants. Teacher Advisory Council.
Not here today, no.
Okay.
I was thinking
Trevor.
about it, and I know Mr. Behringer is very busy coaching and everything. But I don't know that we've gotten a report this school year. have we?
You haven't. I spoke to him recently, so he has a couple ideas. I think that you know, he said he could send someone to the meetings, or maybe if you wanted him to come to a subcommittee meeting or something like that, he'd be open to any of
just
those
think-
things.
You know, we get to hear from all our groups and it's an important voice that we'd like to hear their
Mhm.
perspective and input from. So however it would work, I just would, you know. Have teachers like the students that come, send it.
Yeah, they could add to the report for sure. Mhm.
Yeah, I
Just
think,
some type of feedback.
I think
Okay.
that's, I think, you know, I know Superintendent said has reached out, but if you have an opportunity to speak to Mr. Behringer, Deb, that'd be great.
His philosophy
out.
is sort of no news is good news, but I tell him I'm not sure that it sends that message, so, you know.
I think it's nice. We hear from students, you know, I mean, that's a large group of staff there that we don't get any feedback and we like to hear when things are going well and maybe where we can look at some things for change or whatever, so
Lee?
a little
Yeah.
perspective.
I mean, actually, I did chat with him and, not to say no news is good news, but you know, part of it is, I think he doesn't want to show up if there's really nothing to to report. And his feeling is he doesn't just want to show up and say, gee, let me get some stuff together and just throw it out there. It's not necessary. I mean,
I agree.
That's part of it. Maybe more of a, setup of every 2 or 3 months. And I don't think it's, I mean, if it's not him, I don't think a rotation of maybe other teachers is a good thing. I mean, once you see one, you kind of want to, if he's the one presenting or a teacher for the year, that, it should be, kind of that way, as opposed to having a, oh, we'll send this teacher this month, this teacher that month, because this one's coaching and this one's doing this, et cetera. So,
Well, do they have like a chair, but it doesn't feel like a chair?
no, I don't.
President, vice president.
President, vice president
I
of the
mean,
organization.
just a voice is nice to hear their perspective. I mean,
I'm just saying what part of what, I mean, I'm wondering if we should just, sort of X this out as a monthly thing, and then just if in fact there'll be a presentation, then we put it in.
And what you just said is fantastic, because we're still looking at the agenda. Thank you for us continuously developing ourselves to be a good, effective governing board. And maybe that's part of it, looking at the items to see, the relevancy of it. But I also think that's a great idea. And I know that, I hear you, that no news is good news, but silence can also be another system of saying, it's nothing to report, but at the same time, is there something to be shared about what the culture and climate is with the teacher advisory council, which really is an extension of their union? It was the union. It was not presentations of teachers. It's really the union presenting, was saying, and you're right. Even if there isn't anything to report, or we look at the agenda item, it would be nice if somebody said there's nothing to report, rather than, it can be stated, rather than asking and hearing silence. So I think we're still in the mode of looking and reaching out. And I appreciate, Lee, your perspective on that, as well as the superintendent. So I'd say reach out anyway, and we'll even look at the item as the agenda, like you mentioned, as we're still looking at working on this. Thank you.
We need to go back to Cheryl.
Cheryl?
Mr. Brook, we have an update. The cherry sheets were released at 7 p.m.
Oh.
Our chapter 78 increased by $74 per student. However, the charter tuition and charter reimbursement has been adjusted, and we lost $27,000 in charter reimbursement. So our net chapter 70 increase is $115,576. A little bit, but not what we are hoping for.
115.
And no change to regional transportation.
I was gonna say, what's
That's
that?
what I was
That's the problem.
surprised.
Yeah.
Extremely concerning that the House didn't change that number.
Cheryl, I think the Secretary of Education said that 80% was the highest they've ever funded that. I thought it was more than that.
That's not true.
Yeah,
It's been at 90%, and actually the year that
90.
Senator Brewer retired,
Right.
we got 100%.
Right.
But, so it has been higher than 80%.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes,
They're smoking.
Was it 100 or was it 96
I believe it was 100.
100.
We made it 100, yeah.
for 1 year?
haven't we been promised that several times?
Since 1993 with every form, yes.
Yeah.
Every year.
Every year.
At least it's consistent.
This is
Okay, subcommittee reports, administrative review,
nothing,
audit,
nothing.
budget. Mark Wiggler isn't here, but there's nothing
There's nothing.
at this moment. And we're going to probably have a meeting. We're going to have a meeting on the 25th of April, which will be dealing with budget perspective.
Budget.
So we're going to be doing a full committee.
Oh, full committee.
So I know I'll connect with Mark, but also Deb Chamberlain will also be the conduit and connection to the budget subcommittee, because it will be a full committee on the 25th. Because I think notices for towns.
We got the House numbers are out now.
Yep.
For recalculation, we do have some adjustments that have come in over the last time we had a budget subcommittee meeting. And assessment letters need to go up to the town by the 30th of April. So we'll have another budget vote and get those assessment letters out.
We'll have a full meeting. And that just gives me a time to, okay, we'll just talk that on subcommittee. That's the budget, okay. Central office,
Nothing.
collective bargaining. It's not here, nothing. Buildings and grounds.
Yes, we had a meeting tonight. We talked, first off, about the behavioral threat assessments as far as the safety goes. And I asked the question of everybody there, if we, as a school committee, should have a policy on it. And we kicked it around back and forth, and we decided that we don't really need to.
Okay.
MASC doesn't have one. I guess there may be a reason for that. Maybe they don't think it's necessary. Whatever the case is, we kicked it around and we said, no, we're not gonna, don't need to do that, at least not at this time.
Okay.
Someday, but I don't. We are waiting to hear back from them. If we hear something from them, then we may change our mind, but for now, that's that. There's been a lot of, I've done a bit of studying about threat assessments, and I can tell you that the one at Quabbin that superintendent and Mr. Clark have developed is a really good program. It checks all the boxes from the Secret Service. They have a protocol and it checks all the boxes that they think it should have. So we're in a good place that way. There's been many trainings throughout the year with staff and students. They've studied both the threat assessments and the ALICE training. CPR, stop the bleed, all that stuff. That's pretty important stuff. So that was all on threat assessments. Then we talked about the cell phone update. I missed the Lynn Lyons presentation, but Mrs. Moha said that it was a very good presentation about cell phones, social media. So that was an educational experience, I think, for a lot of students and parents. We're working on the middle high school team on updates to the handbook policies for cell phones. And thinking about a couple of different ways of sort of encapsulating the cell phone so the students don't have them during class. Things like the yonder pouches, they have block boxes, they have thing that looks like a shoe tree where the kids all put them in the shoe tree. There's a lot of things. The team is working on that right now, the middle high school team, and they should have an update by the end of the year. So we'll know more about that, how they want to go. Mr. Clark went through all the buildings and ground updates, so I don't think I need to cover that. And that's all I have.
Any questions?
Regarding the cell phones, I know my husband's a teacher at Pathfinder. One thing, they use the Yonder pouches, which has been a great program for them.
They use yonder pouches.
Right, yeah, they use a pouch. But one of the things that they've had a problem with, and this is just advice at school overall, is kids bringing fake cell phones. And bringing fake cell phones to put in the pouches.
Oh.
Yeah, so they've had to have a policy against that as well, I'll put it that way. So that might be a consideration to add into that. Well, a policy against fake cell phones, like what's the punishment gonna be if they have a fake cell phone they put in there?
Fakes. Wow.
We said they were smart.
They are smart.
Any other questions for Walter? Walter, I was able to last night make Lynn Lyons presentation.
Talk to what I was gonna talk about, what I was.
But yeah, I was hoping, and my wife came with me too, because she's a tutor in South High.
Oh.
Down in Worcester. She retired out as an English teacher, but she went back to tutor for a bit. And just the use of cell phones, that's Worcester. I mean, I know I came out of Worcester for 33 years, but what really Lynn message, I got a lot from it, I really did. But aside from the potential anxieties and the isolation and pieces like that, and the influence that kids are getting versus good old human contact and connections. So I think I'm glad to have student representation here, because we really are looking at it, not only Lynn Lyons, there's a whole anxiety piece on this. And what is in the best interest, not to hide or keep things away. But at the same time, how about engagement and connections rather than potential isolation and living on this thing? You know, and I thought she was very good. I thought she was very good for parents, and I heard, like you said, she worked with she presented to the students?
Teachers.
Teachers, okay, teachers. So, we're looking at that, and at the same time, which I also got from this, parents are our allies in this. They're our partners in this. And so if those phones are getting in the way, how about kids on buses and things like that? I don't know all those things, but,
Well, most of them are on them, so it's very quiet. Except for the ding, ding, ding.
you know, so, like I said, we're reviewing, we're looking, and student input is important through this whole process as well.
One input that my husband also had when they first at Pathfinder did the pouches, he said the one immediate thing that he noticed, because they have them in there all day long, like they don't have access until they leave, is that kids were talking to each other at the lunch tables, which we haven't seen in a while. So I mean, there are some, it's a challenge in getting the parents partnership, because I know some of the parents can be the worst culprits of texting their kid and being like, do you have practice after school, or whatever it is, as an interruption in the day. But it is a fine balance, because having that communication as they start to do after school sports is important to know as your practice go out to pick you up or you're on the bus, like. So there is a portion of that is important, but again, getting them to talk to each other instead of on Snapchat, like sending each other snaps instead of actually talking to each other across the table.
And if you think about it, years ago, when we had phones, they weren't smartphones. So 2007 is when the smartphones came into existence. They were just regular phones. So you weren't having people calling in your classrooms all the time. They weren't used that way. But now it's.
You also had to pay by text, and so you knew your.
Oh, that's right. They should have paid by text. See? So thank you for the update and looking at that and review. And the threat assessment, you know, you're keeping an eye, you're updating. There's a lot of work going, a lot of people are doing things. So thank you on that safety part. Policy and review and reform. Student services. Okay. Technology.
Nothing.
Okay. School district configuration? Nothing. Okay. No unfinished business, public comment? Do we have anybody? No. School committee concerns, one, before I turn to you. Yep, go ahead.
I've really given a lot of thought to our currently interim superintendent, and she really is amazing, and the leadership you have shown through some trying times, to say the least, has been incredible. So thank you. This is not certainly the year we probably would have liked to have had you start in, but talk about hitting the ground running, like taking off into the first school year, and I mean, just dealing with us. I mean, we've had the news here more in the month, and it really, and I mean, and she's driving vans, getting our students on Saturdays, like, talk about leadership. I mean, I really couldn't thank you enough.
Well, thank you for
Our
saying
district
that.
is in very good hands.
Thank you. It is a team effort. I can't stress that enough. It's a team effort. It's because of all of our administrators and staff that we can do what we do, and everybody in central office, you know, I could not do it without them. That is for sure. So
Well, we couldn't have a better example for them to follow. So thank you.
I was joking earlier today that it's a good thing you guys probably asked me to continue as superintendent a few months ago before all the bus accidents. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. And, you know, we learn with everyone. So, I mean, I think that's just important to note. We have our upcoming safety meetings. And so we are going to debrief our bus situations and things like that so that we can just keep getting better and better. And every response has not been perfect. And, you know, I own that and we'll figure it out.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Was gonna say something, but I'll hold off till next month.
Okay,
Still researching.
okay. And I just have to, two quick things. Two quick things on update is we'll have a meeting on the 25th, April 25th for a school committee, a full committee, probably just a couple of items. Budget will be one, but we also will have a training for part 2 for the teacher, the superintendent evaluation tool, MASC. Alicia, who participated last time that gave us the presentation. We're gonna have a 1 hour, no more than 1 hour, start at 5:30 to 6:30 on April 25th. And it is an overview of the superintendent evaluation, the process. We have new members. We have folks that even have been here for years. But it gives us the depth and breadth of what we are responsible for, the tool, as well as how do you gather the information and the information the superintendent has been giving to that. Along with, and superintendent has been instrumental to work with us on that as well, as you know that. It's a co-governance model, as we all know, which just kind of gives you another piece that you authorized Deb and I to meet with the superintendent to solidify the contract, which we're going to do with the superintendent. She asked the past few times that I've asked, let me just get through a little more of the budget. I'm like, there, I'm not going anywhere, please. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, just
You
want to
are.
make sure that we're doing our
Not a
due
high
diligence
priority.
part. But I want to solidify that, and I like maybe hope that maybe by next month or whatever, we'll have that done as well. So aside from the leadership of the superintendent, thank you again for us as we continue to develop. And the an update of the responsibility of the evaluation tool was asked for our school committee members. So that'll be on the 25th. Barry members, I know that there was an email, hopefully you got it as well. All Barry subcommittee members, on the 23rd. I got an email, what's it, from the town administrator?
Mhm.
On the 23rd, Tuesday night at 6:30, we were invited to the Barry, is it a joint
Finance
meeting?
committee.
Finance committee.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure that we get a notice out the same, were you emailed on that from the town?
It was an email. I don't know who sent it.
Okay, you did receive it. So, good, I was hoping that as many of us of the Barry representatives can attend. No other school committee concerns? New business. Let's go right in order. Staffing report update.
So Cheryl has been working on this has it been over a week? I feel like, Cheryl? Several days. So, we've been asked by some of our towns on a couple different occasions when we've met with them to have an analysis of, our staffing patterns and to think about, changes over time. So that's what we're going to share with you, and we're going to focus on 2020 forward and thinking about the staffing changes that we've had over the past few years. And so Cheryl we have done our best to categorize them and align them with our priorities that we had sort of in the early stages of COVID and beyond. So overall, since 2021, coming out of the pandemic through 2024, we've had a total of 81.5 increases in staffing. And so Cheryl did an amazing job just doing changes over time. And I think we noticed a couple things. The first thing that we noticed was the amount of times that people have joined us as a staff member and then perhaps left us as a staff member and then someone else came on, partway through the year is incredible. And more so since 2023 and 2024, right, Cheryl? Those were the big changes. So when we're trying to track these positions, it's really challenging because we had a teacher, as a matter of fact, who Cheryl and I were like, well, what was she doing? What did she do? You know, and then you realize that even though she was an employee for one reason, she also filled a different position before that. So it really wasn't an additional staffing position. She had taken the place of someone else partway through the year. So we feel pretty good about the numbers that you have in front of you. And so then we went back and we said, okay, let's try to share with people exactly why we've had these staffing increases. So the first thing that we want to point out is that we decided to try to create some efficiency, that we were going to cut our connection to the New England Center for Children and the autism program, that we were going to take over those classrooms ourselves. And so we've had a sort of a fading out approach over the past couple of years. So first we took over the middle high school classroom and we added a preschool classroom. We're calling them SOAR classrooms now, but you'll see that we've added 3 teachers for the SOAR classrooms at the elementary level and 1 middle high school SOAR teacher. Before, NEC provided the teachers to those classrooms. They were not Quabbin teachers. We've had to add a BCBA. NEC used to provide that. We have also added assistant ABA to work with our students with challenging behaviors. We added an elementary social worker who spends a little bit of her time working in that program and then is shared across our elementary schools. We had to add all related services. So the related service providers of a speech language pathologist, occupational therapist, and physical therapist. And we've added multiple paraprofessionals as we've had students. Again, as we said, we opened this preschool classroom in particular. So do you have any questions on, I'm gonna just sort of go section by section maybe.
Correct.
What's that?
But we're not paying the net contract.
We are not. So this was because we believed we could create
Right.
greater efficiency when we started it.
Have we?
I think that's analysis we still need to run, and it's been challenging with staffing patterns, but we will look at that. Yeah, we talked about that. The next category to the right, I'll start with the upper row, is the idea of addressing learning loss. So as you know, we were really worried coming out of the pandemic. We have more multilingual learners than we've had before, so we've had to add a teacher and a half to support those students. We added intervention tutors. So we started an intervention model at our middle school when our 6th grade up. We didn't do it the first year, but we saw very quickly that was a gap for us. So we've added both significant intervention tutors that are now spanned across grades 6, 7, and 8. We added a 0.5 reading specialist. We added the intervention specialist, so the model works like it does at the elementary level. We added a literacy coach to the middle high school between 21 and 24. We added this past year, you'll remember, a grade 6 social studies teacher and a grade 7 science teacher. And we also added another grade 6 science teacher and the 2 technology integration specialists we had added with ESSER. Any questions on that category? Okay. Addressing social emotional health. We added that elementary social worker. We had only had the shared social worker at the middle high school and 2 clinicians there. On the 4th box to the right, we're calling this addressing required services. So we have seen an increase in the need to support our students with disabilities. And so all of these positions over here are to do that. We added a therapeutic classroom at Hardwick Elementary School. Previously, we did not have an elementary therapeutic classroom. Again, those related service providers, the psychologist, the team chair. We added our post-grad teacher and our post-grad program, paraprofessionals to support those programs. I think that, and the inclusion coach. So the inclusion coach is to support the idea that we're trying to, and I'm going to talk about this in our SOA plan, that we're really trying to close the gaps for our students with disabilities so they can achieve at a higher level, because it is significant at the middle school level in particular, and the data shows that.
Last couple of years.
Yes,
Yep.
yep. The next category we have is around school health, safety, and security. So we have the substance prevention coordinators. We talk about Nika and Mary, they presented to us one meeting. We have a building and ground supervisor that's been hired in that time. We added additional nursing staff. We added some additional security monitors at the middle high school. We added one custodian. We actually added an assistant principal. We used to have 3 for a while at the middle high school, and then we broke our model into the 2 houses, and so now we have 4. And this is a big one. We added permanent substitutes. So what we were seeing during this time was, and we still are seeing, were high rates of absenteeism for our teachers. And so we decided, instead of, well, first of all, we were struggling to get consistent people, and we thought if we could get consistent people by offering them a year-long position for a permanent substitute, if we were having that many absences, it would save us in the long run. So we've added 8 of those. We also have increased our access to pre-K. That is one of our goals on our student opportunity plan, and that results in 2 preschool teachers. We funded those with ESSER initially. Our next categories is expanding academic opportunities. We started the Innovation Pathway Program. We added some staffing there. We switched to global politics in the high school. We added staffing there. We added the position of our guidance director for external partnerships. He supports not just our post-grad programming, our internships, our innovation pathways. We added a digital wellness teacher for the middle school. We had to increase some elementary music staffing, and elementary teachers, 2 elementary teachers and a kindergarten teacher have been added. Also, we increased the physical education by a 0.5 teacher at the high school, and we added a media director at the high school level. And the last thing that we have on our list was one of our strategic goals was around improving communication. And we had added that 0.5 communication specialist that Teresa Salvador has filled. So that results in 81.5 staffing positions over time. And some of those positions are being cut with this budget.
Correct. Now, with the loss of the fundings for these positions was based on ESSER, I should say, ESSER, as well as grants.
Yes, and many of these positions are in grants, even that you see on this paper right now, but they are all the staffing positions we've added over time. Cheryl, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
And then there are now, with the loss of funding, we are making adjustments with our staffing and the needs along the way as well, correct?
Yeah, we're really trying to really thoughtful in our approach, that there were some positions and programs that are much needed. We do not feel that we can get rid of at this point. We just don't. So.
Now, the permanent subs, those 8 people, are they working every day?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that middle and high school or all?
All right.
All,
Okay,
yeah, so
all.
all of our elementary schools
Particular,
have a
okay.
permanent sub, and then we have more at the middle high school.
They get medical coverage?
Anybody who works 20 hours or more has medical coverage.
Any questions?
So we are going to share this data with the towns because they've asked for it, but we really wanted you to see it and understand it in case you get any questions. Or when you get any questions.
So overall, I know we've looked at staffing patterns in the past, and with our declining enrollments, I think that's kind of the point of what the towns are interested in looking at is, you know, with declining enrollment, our staffing patterns have decreased over time. However, since COVID, I think the needs have changed and our responsibilities have changed.
Yes.
And just because the funding went away doesn't mean that everything
Needs.
is resolved.
Right,
And the
right.
needs aren't there anymore.
Right. Okay. Plus the responsibility, and I know SOA, you were talking about, you talked about the challenges of not only student achievement, enhancement, the differences of in the middle and the high school, kids with identified learning differences to meet their expectations and to increase the opportunities for them to succeed. You had to add staffing.
Yes.
And then you had, if you look at it, you look at the autism, we took that in-house. So we knew, and that analysis would be done because we were paying contract out. We contracted that money out. And then when you start looking at the special education or identified numbers, that's been an increase too for the past few years. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
So therefore, even on the related services have increased. Am I correct on that? OT, PT, speech.
And you were at one time, before July 1st, you were contracting out for some of those services. And you've also increased, like in speech, compared to a few years ago, you increased services in speech. And now PT and OT we're trying to handle internally.
You know, and I know that superintendent and your team and all that, you do the analysis of a case, you know, what a caseload looks like, what the analysis of that is, what's the fairness and equity of that. And then the difference between, you know, identifying kids at young age, you know, and EI, early intervention versus, you know, on the high school level, which they may not, you know, you may be dealing with other perspectives of 504s or things like that, but maybe not the amount of assessments being done on the high school level versus it is on so you need the team chair and you need your psychologists and your special education teachers to be available for that as well, correct?
Yes.
Just trying to use and understand the language of what and how we justify our positions when we increase for the reasons where the needs are.
And I would probably add to that, maybe this is a bad analogy, but if you look at special ed or disability services as a piece of pie.
Yep.
And you look at your budget, if the budget for some reason decreased or stayed the same, the piece of pie for special ed doesn't actually necessarily go down or become smaller. Sometimes it actually becomes bigger, even if it's the exact same service from year to year, because of the overall needs of the district.
Also, did the passing of the dyslexia screening guidelines, did that also increase?
I think.
Or see a pattern of increase in services
Yes,
because of that too?
I think overall, there's several different factors that you consider. The pandemic and the new definition from the state relevant to what was compensatory services. So there are a couple of different ways to look at compensatory services now. What we should be providing but couldn't, and then compensatory is based also on a definition that the state has offered as to what we need to do to make up during that pandemic time period. But also the eligibility categories relevant to, yes, like reading disabilities has kind of expanded the scope of looking for kids that might be determined eligible for services. And that doesn't just limit to what we do here in the district. There is kind of like a community effort with that. When you look at the changes to proportionate share and what we do now for private schools in the district or kids that are homeschooled in the district, there is kind of an expanding bubble relevant to special ed. And we're going to see that more, especially in things like pre-K as we get further and further away or further down the road.
Thank you. Anything else?
So the sad thing is there's still going to be that element in every town that's out there. It's going to say, you know, 50 years ago, we had SHOP and we never needed any of this. So maybe you should just bring SHOP back it'll be a lot cheaper and everything will be okay.
And the kids want home ec. too.
And
Bring that
and
home.
home ec.
there you go. I mean, and that's-
Literacy, they want financial literacy.
and we could throw this out there, but just the segment we'll never reach,
Correct.
unfortunately.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's interesting when I look at the list, and, you know, we just really kind of categorize them this afternoon, but, you know, I think one thing to note is the majority of those positions that are on that chart are very close to students. They're
Absolutely.
working really closely with kids. So we're not, you know, just adding things.
For the sake of adding.
Yeah,
They're added because of student needs.
right.
Okay, acceptance of the Student Opportunity Act plan. Superintendent?
So even though we really don't get any increased revenue for the Student Opportunity Act here, we have to put a plan together. So every 3 years, we'll complete a plan. So the focus areas are ones that we've been working on. So we have 3 goals. The first is to expand our preschool programming to all elementary schools at no cost to families. And the goal in 3 years is to be able to offer both half-day and full-day programs for families. Our second goal is to implement high-quality curriculum materials in the core areas, literacy, math, science, and social studies. And our third goal is around that multi-tiered system of supports and thinking about leveraging evidence-based practices such as co-teaching, inclusion, the intervention model, in order to accelerate the growth of our students. And we have identified our grades 6 to 8 as our focus area for that because our data really shows that there's a huge discrepancy in those grade levels. And so the plan goes on to say how we're going to do some of those things. And we already have quite a few of those started. So we've started our full day pre-K programming over in Hardwick. We have been working with our numbers and our preschool coordinator about trying to increase full day slots over in New Braintree for next school year. We have adopted high quality curriculum materials in literacy and math, and Carrie has talked to you about doing open sci ed and investigating history for next year. The goal, though, over 3 years is to get that K to 12, and we are not there yet, but that will be our goal. And then the final one is around the multi-tiered system of support. So the intervention has started. We've started some co-teaching, but we need to get more traction on that. And the bigger piece really is that system for data analysis and really identifying what students need so we can provide direct, explicit intervention for those students. So some of the steps that we're going to take there is really working and training our teachers on some of those specialized programs that they may not know how to implement or are familiar with for our students.
Is there a motion to accept the Student Opportunity Action Plan as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Second, are there any questions? Any further comment in regard of the action plan? That is not only required, but this really is also part of our strategic plan. It's also the nuts and bolts of what we are supposed to be doing to help not only kids with potentially disabilities and economic disadvantaged students, it's also the evidence-based programs to deal with those disparities. Seeing and hearing none for questions, roll call for acceptance.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Willannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Muck?
Yes.
Ms. Chafee?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Next item, acceptance of Air Shirley into the CAPS Collaborative.
Because we are one of the members of the CAPS Collaborative, anytime they want to bring a new district on board, everybody has to vote on it. So the school committee has to accept the Air Shirley Regional District into the CAPS Collaborative. I don't have any concerns with it. So
Good. Is there a motion?
Sure. Motion to accept.
Accept Shirley into the CAPS Collaborative. Is there a second?
Second.
Walter? Any further potential discussion?
Just a quick question. Do we know how many current members there are? I'm just kind of curious.
List right here.
Oh, it's okay. if you don't.
It's right here. It's right here. Second page.
12 with Air Shirley.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, no, what's not? Any further discussion? And roll call?
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Willinan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Muck?
Yes.
Ms. Ms. Chafee? Sorry.
I love it, Miss Charity. Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
And Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. School choice 24-25 openings and the superintendent, and then will be a motion for us to move forward.
So each
Superintendent?
year, each year the school committee has to vote to be open to accept school choice students. So that's what this is about. We know that we are graduating 27 school choice students this year out of Quabbin. And the motion says that we'll be cautious not to accept a number of students that would adversely affect our district finances.
Motion to recommend that in accordance with state law requiring all schools to be open to school choice. Quabbin Regional School District accepts school choice students for the 2024-2025 academic year in grade levels where space is available. The administration will be cautious not to accept a number of choice students that would adversely affect district finances.
Second.
Okay, and further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Willinan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Muck?
Yes.
Ms. Chafee?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mr. Brophy?
Yes. Just a couple more items. We're gonna go into executive session, and then we'll come out, possibly to a point, and then we'll adjourn. So the next motion is to conduct a request for executive session to conduct collective bargaining and contract negotiations with non-union personnel. We need a motion to go into executive session. Seconded, okay, and roll call.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Willinan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Muck?
Yes.
Ms. Chafee?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Give me just a second to move everyone.
Okay. Okay, well, now we're back in?
We're back in, yeah.
Okay, we're back in, back on, to the agenda, out of executive session, back to open session. Appointment of a school business administrator is the item. Julia Frank, but I'm gonna turn over to Mr. Willan for a motion.
All right, so I would like to motion that the school committee vote to elect Julia Franks as the next Quabbin Business Administrator. What's the official?
School business
School business.
administrator, yes.
School Business Administrator. And with a starting date of
July 1.
July 1, 2024.
With a 3-year contract expiring June 30th, 2027.
Okay, for a 3-year contract expiring June 30th, 2027.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any other further discussion? School committee members? Roll call.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Lannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Muck?
Yes.
Ms. Chafee?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Congratulations, Julia. We see you up there. So I don't know if you want to say a few things or if anyone has any questions for Julia.
Oh, that's it. She's
I'm
done.
out of here.
And just wanted to say hello and I'm excited to work with you all.
Absolutely. Is it Mrs. Doctor? What was your salutation?
Mrs.
Mrs. Okay. Welcome. I heard you interviewed a couple of times. It was you're from West Springfield?
I work in West Springfield now. I currently live in Springfield.
Look forward to meeting you in person and welcome to the Quabbin Regional School District. Cheryl has worked for many years here and you will do fine. We have a 15-member board. We're easy to work with. We believe in a co-governance model. I know you've done your homework on us, so we truly not only your interest, but you're full of participation to be an employee. And we're going to need you and we will work together. Anything else? And I look forward to meeting you in person.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Any questions for Julia?
Nope.
Welcome.
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 Thanks for coming, Julia.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
See you soon. Next last item is a motion to adjourn. So motion, second, roll call.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Lannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Muck?
Yes.
Ms. Chafee?
Yes.
Thompson? Mr. Nutter?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman?
Yes, and good evening.